So, you're a business owner dedicated to the significant and sustainable growth of both you and your business. Welcome to the Add a Zero podcast.
Hi, I'm Jay Allen from the Add a Zero podcast, and today I want to be sharing with you why successful business owners are some of the most trapped I've ever met. Jay, how on earth does that possibly even compute? Surely successful and trapped would never be in the same sentence. Well, I guess that all determines on what do you define as the word success. What does that actually conjure up for you? You see, for a large number of clients that I've worked with over the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years now, I've noticed one predominant thing in common. It's not about their industry or their sector or their age or sex or any other normal demographic that we might choose as a niche. What I've noticed in the majority of clients that I've worked and had success with are that they are what I refer to as accidental business owners. Doesn't matter whether they were initially made redundant and set up their own business, or whether they took on a business that was subsequently closing and they chose to take over, whether they'd seen a niche and decided to leave employment to be able to chase their own dream, or simply that they wanted to be able to live life on their own terms, be there for their family. It doesn't necessarily matter the reason why they're set out in business, but if I look closely in the data that we've collected with regards to our clients and their background and how they originated their business, one thing in common that strung along many of the different stories of clients that we've worked with was all around being able to set up in order to be able to provide for their family. They were very good at what they do. They're a specialist in their area of expertise. And quickly after setting the business up or taking over the business, they were full. They had a waiting list of people wanting to work with them. They had some great 5-star reviews and case studies. Recommendations and referrals were coming in. They were really good at doing what they do. And as a result of that, they took on some help to be able to continue to manage that demand. Certainly in Add a Zero Establishing Basecamp, the book that I first had published in 2015, we refer in chapter 8, I think it's on page 271 or 272, we talk about the order in which a new business owner ought to consider taking on new staff. And certainly the first role of help and support for a solopreneur or a sole trader starting out on their own business ought to be some form of administrative help or a bookkeeper, or possibly both, dependent on your needs and professional capabilities within the business. But somebody to provide some form of help and support in the back office, allowing you to do more of what it is that you do. And certainly as those business owners continue to grow and evolve and develop, as the business started to become even more popular and busier still, they slowly grew a small team of people to be able to help and support to grow that business. Sound familiar? Well, now cut forward 3 years, 5 years, 7, 8 years. The client I was working with less than 2 weeks ago, who's just celebrated their 9th birthday with a team of 7, including the business owner. However, when we first started working with that client just a few months ago, one of the first questions that really jarred was when I asked, how long will you be taking off over the school holidays this year, as I noticed that you've got a young family? And I was rather surprised and taken back that somebody as successful, 7 people in the business, great reviews, just having won a regional award, replied, oh, my wife's taking the kids to Spain for a fortnight. I'm hoping to be able to fly out there for the final weekend. What? Are you going through some form of divorce? What on earth's going on? This is also, I can't possibly take any time off over August. It's our busiest month. Wow. And there it was, plain to see. he'd set up a business to be able to provide for his wife and family. And 7 years later, multi-six-figure business, 7 people employed, just having won a regional award, and can't take a week off to go on holiday with them because it's still too busy. He's become trapped in a 5-star prison of his own business and ultimately of his own making. And he's not alone. There are so many business owners out there that are incredibly good and successful at what they do and have built a small team of people around them to be able to help and support and grow the business. And inadvertently, they've subsequently created this little padded cell. They've become trapped in their own success as a direct result of everything that's led them to get to that revenue turnover is now preventing them from doing what they started out in business to achieve, which for him was to deliver for his family. He's able to deliver the value, the cash in the bank, but at what cost? He's an absent father. He's working harder now than he ever was when he first started out in business. He's often in the office before the kids have gone to school. He's often working late into the evening, sometimes having to go in to catch up with things or get ahead on a Sunday. Every now and again, he's checking his phone at the dining room table. That's not success. That's just a 5-star prison. Surely that's not what we set out to achieve when we first set out in business. Nowhere in my business plan, when I first had this great idea, did it say, and I'm going to compromise everything that I believe is valuable to me. I'm going to compromise being a good, active, proactive dad or husband or wife. I'm going to stop seeing my friends. I'm no longer going to have time to go to the gym or to work out or to spend time on me. I'm going to devote everything that I've done to get me to where I am at the expense of everything that I held dear to me before I got there. The whole motive for starting the business is now the one that's holding us back and preventing us from achieving. And as a result of it, if we hadn't intervened, if we hadn't met this client just a few months ago and started to work, if I hadn't asked those specific punch-in-the-gut questions, at some stage in the future, be it September, when his 2 kids say, "Daddy, where were you?" Or "Do you remember when?" And he can't because he wasn't there. Eventually, he will start to regret the business that he's built. He'll start to fall out of love with the business that's generating the income that he set out for in the first place. I know because I've been there. In 2005, I set up my first business. I cheated. I'd taken a golden handshake from a corporate job and chose to invest in buying a micro business, a business with 3 members of staff, and to take on a forward order book. All I needed to do was not to break it. And I was so concerned about owning a small business with small margins, where one error could have been the difference between profitable and loss. I was so consumed with the job that I'd previously had in corporate with a big budget and big teams that I brought that into our small micro business and inspired 3 members of staff to say, I'm not comfortable in this space. I want to be a big national provider. We're going to grow this aggressively and become the next big thing. Who's with me? And we went on a really, really aggressive growth plan in order to be able to get to regional and national contracts quickly. And we were doing okay. We got to 17 members of staff. We went from 3 to 17 members of staff in just over a month over 3 years. And we'd more than 5x'd the business. That was until Woolworths went under, and us as recent newly signed suppliers to Woolworths were left high and dry, pants down, a lot of money owed and no money coming in. And whilst I applied Blue Ocean strategy, that's what I'm trained to be able to do, to be able to look at disruptive patterns, to be able to find out how to be able to move forward effectively, quickly, and sustainably. And whilst I applied Blue Ocean strategy to our own business to be able to do a quick turnaround, I borrowed from everywhere possible in order to be able to keep the business afloat. Whilst I was successful in creating the turnaround, we went from 17 staff back to 10 staff and up to 22 staff, all within 2 years, by applying the Blue Ocean strategy, which I now teach and share and mentor people how to be able to do. Whilst we'd done the turnaround within my own business, it was at the expense and the detriment to the reason why I'd set up in business. I was now turning up to a 7-figure, not quite a multi-7-figure, but certainly a low 7-figure turnover business, hating being there because of the impact it had had on me personally, my relationships with my family. The sacrifices I'd made along the way hadn't been worth the reward we were now starting to receive. And I was turning up in a profitable business feeling depressed, which is why I made the decision to exit. I spent 8.5, 9 months supporting my management team to buy out the business and own it, to continue to grow and evolve and develop a now multi-7-figure business without me being present, because of the impact, the emotional connection, the emotional loss that I'd had as a result of getting it there. And it's that which spurred me on to say, no other business owner should have to go through the sacrifice and the emotional pain that I felt at that point. So like I say, some of the most successful people on the outside are the most trapped I've ever met. They are so in need, they are so still central to everything within the business that the moment they stop, and it all falls down like a pack of cards. And therefore, those are the people who I am here to serve. One, because I've been there, because I understand it, because I know what it feels like. And two, because I know how it feels, I don't want anyone to ever have to feel that again. So, if this has resonated with you, if you are currently in a business where today you've recognized that some of that resonates with you, that you're either working longer hours than you want to, you're not earning the income that you feel that you deserve for the amount of effort and challenge and risk that you put into running your own business. If you've got other mouths to feed, and what I don't mean necessarily about a partner and kids, although they're important. I'm talking about if you've got other members of staff that are now reliant on you and your business for their rent or mortgage or salary. And a lot of the onus still relies on you showing up day after day after day after day, being your best all the time. If all of that responsibility relies on you, then this is the place to be. I've created a really simple business freedom technique, which I'm going to gift to people, an audit and assessments to determine as to how trapped are you and how to be able to break free. You'll find the link in the show notes today of how to be able to complete a 3 or 4 minute assessments to establish as to how trapped are you and the things that you need to consider in order to be able to break free. Because I am committed to being able to ensure that other people Don't go through the emotional hardship I went through in 2008 when Woolworths went under. And by 2011, when I decided that although the business was successful, it was successful at the detriment of everything that I put in to be able to make that so. I don't want you ever to have to go through that alone, which is why we've created this program specifically to be able to help people like yourself. God bless, take care. I'll see you again next week with some more insights on how to be able to break free and move towards a different level of success. A success that doesn't rely on you 24/7. How to make yourself redundant predominantly and still receive the paycheck that you deserve. God bless, take care. I'll see you next week.
That's all for this episode. As always, we really thank you for listening and welcome your comments, thoughts, and suggestions. So please do drop us a line by emailing podcast@mytruenorth.biz. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you're listening to this through. And tell your colleagues and business network all about who we are. You've been listening to the Add a Zero podcast presented by Jay Allen. Brought to you in association with My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company.